What's up guys, welcome to this special video all about answering some fun film questions. So let's get straight into it then. I've got I think about 32 questions or something. If you watch my video game one, it's basically that, but I've twisted the questions a little bit to focus more on films. So let's get into it. Question number 1. What's your favourite film? So I'm constantly changing my mind with my favourite film. Usually, for simplicity, I'll just say Star Wars. But more specifically, I think it's The Empire Strikes Back. But I do like the original Star Wars, and I'm also a big fan of The Force Awakens. But other films in there, like Wall Street, The Wolf of Wall Street, I think they're great. And Big Trouble in Little China, I think is really underrated. That's a good film. Inception, Birdman, Blade Runner 2049, I think is a masterpiece. And the 2011 Muppets, I think is really good as well. So those are the ones I would usually go to as my favourite films. But yeah, if you want me to be more specific, probably The Empire Strikes Back. Question 2. What's a film you thought you'd like but actually hated? Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad should be right up my alley. I love these characters, I love the comic books, and Harley Quinn, one of my favourite comic book characters of all time. The trailers for this built it up as a big, almost like a Guardians of the Galaxy knockoff. And it turns out these trailers were really, really deceiving. The film was not like that at all. In fact, they actually then had to re-edit the film to try and be more like the trailers. And it just didn't work. This film was a mess. A real mess. The best thing about it was the acting from the cast. And the problem is the film's overarching narrative wasn't entertaining. It wasn't fun. The villains were bland and boring, and not even going to talk about Cara Delevingne. I don't want to criticize her too much, but yeah. That was bad. Joker was terrible. Jared Leto's version of the Joker just not right at all. Harley Quinn was over-sexualized. There are 3 helicopter crash scenes in this film, and each one is basically the same scene over and over again, and no one dies. It's weird. And for a film about the Suicide Squad, where characters are supposed to die, I think there's only 1 or 2 people that actually die in the whole film. It's bizarre. But yeah. Not going to talk about it too much. Suicide Squad, awful film. Should have been right up my alley. Should have been great. It looked like it was going to be good. Was terrible. Question 3. What's a really popular film everyone seems to love, but you don't like? So right off the top of my head, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I don't like that film at all. That film freaks me out more than anything else. I don't like the idea of the film. I think E.T. itself is just weird and googly-eyed and stuff. And yeah. The actual noises that he makes, the way he speaks and what he does is more annoying and frustrating to me, and yeah, not a fan of that film. The other one is The Never-Ending Story. Never-Ending Story, I haven't watched that a long time, but I hated that film. It was just, again, weird and bizarre, and yeah, not for me. Question 4. What's a film you didn't expect to enjoy but ended up really liking it? I suppose, right, well there's one which I've only ever seen once, and I refuse to watch it again, and that's Let the Right One In. So Let the Right One In, a vampire film where there's this vampire character who comes in to make friends with each other, and it's horror, drama, romance almost. It's a foreign film, I think it's Swedish. Again, I've only seen it the once, and the reason I've only seen it the once is because I liked it that much. I feel like watching it again would ruin that experience. I know for a fact if I sit down and watch that film again, I'm not going to like it quite as much as I did the first time. So yeah, that's my answer right off the top of my head. Question 5. If you had to marry a character from the last film you watched, who would it be? So the last film I watched was Le Mans 66, or Ford v Ferrari. So as a straight guy, there's only one woman in that film, and that's Katrina Balfe. So best known for Outlander. Yeah. Great choice to marry, yeah, not complaining about that. Question 6. If you had to live in the world of the last film you watched, what would it be? So it's Le Mans 66, like I said, so you're talking 1960s America. I think it's California, could be Texas, I don't know. Question 7. Have you ever had a crush on a film character? Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Question 8. What was the first film you ever watched? So I'm not quite sure what the first film I ever watched was. It's possibly Star Wars. It would make sense if it was Star Wars. But yeah, I really don't know. Question 9. What was the last film you watched? So again, Ford v Ferrari, Le Mans 66. Question 10. What film do you want to watch next, or are going to watch next? So, I've got a few things booked. Next week I'm going to see The Good Liar in pictures. That's the new Helen Mirren, Ian McKellen con man film. I've also got tickets booked to see Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. And I've got tickets booked to see The Knives Out. So the next film is actually going to be The Good Liar. But these are just things I'm going to see. So Star Wars, Knives Out, and I'll be watching The Irishman when that comes out as well. So that's my current upcoming viewing list. Question 11. In your opinion, who is the best film director? So I think a few names have to be mentioned. Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese. I really like Christopher Nolan. I think J.J. Abrams is getting up there, although J.J. Abrams is a lot like Steven Spielberg, because Spielberg was J.J.'s main inspiration and influence. I think you have to consider Quentin Tarantino there as well. Question 12. Have you ever had to stop watching a film because it was too scary? So, no, not because it was scary. The only films I've ever noticeably... There are films where I've stopped watching because it's boring and it's not very good. But the only films where I've actually stopped it because I had a big disagreement with them. So, Dinosaur, the Disney Dinosaur film, is the only film I've ever went to the cinema to see and walked out of. I thought that was a terrible film. I was a kid at the time, but it's just a boring film, and I wouldn't even try watching it again. The other one, the only film I've ever actually stopped watching because I just disagreed with what was happening, was Equilibrium, the Christian Bale movie, this science fiction kind of thing. And again, I was young when this was happening. The reason I stopped watching it is because there was a scene where he just picks up a dog and kills it. Yeah. But they kill the dogs off screen, but it's more the idea of it. Back then, I was like, I do not condone animal violence or anything like that, so that was too much for me. I just turned it off there and then. Question 13. Has a film ever made you cry? So, no, not full on bawling tears rolling down my face or anything. There have been films where I've teared up, and I've noticed as I'm getting older, I'm getting more emotional and more invested in the films, it seems. So, yeah, I don't know what that's about, but usually you're talking the Star Wars films, the ones that I'm really invested in. So, Force Awakens had a few moments like that. That's just a really emotional film. Rogue One, towards the end, when you see Carrie Fisher, considering the time period in which that happened and what happened surrounding her. Yeah, very emotional stuff there. There's a particular scene in The Last Jedi, again, with Carrie Fisher, when she's basically... where Luke goes to her and says, nobody's ever really gone. It's so poignant, so emotional at that point. Those scenes all made me tear up, but I never sat down and actually had tears crawling down my face, and yeah, for some reason that doesn't happen to me. Question 14. What's your favourite film genre? Probably science fiction, probably drama, but to be honest, I'm more about the story than the genre itself, so yeah, I do like a good western, but I don't feel like there are too many good westerns anymore. My favourite westerns are gritty, realistic westerns, and it seems like so many of them try to be the much more the fun, adventurous kind. But yeah, genre I'm not too fussy about, but I do kind of go more towards science fiction. Question 15. Do you ever go to the cinema alone? Yes, I go to the cinema alone quite a lot now. I do prefer going with company though. I think cinema, watching a film, going to the cinema is much better as a social activity. But yeah, nothing wrong with going on your own, I don't think. But I do go on my own more than I go with someone else. Question 16. What was the first DVD, VHS or Blu-ray you ever owned? So the first DVD I ever owned was Cats and Dogs. Yeah, not a film I actually liked. And again, I was a kid, so yeah. I remember when I got my PS3, the Blu-ray that came with it was X-Men The Last Stand. Again, not a very good film. It came with the PS3, so that was the first Blu-ray I ever owned. The first Blu-ray I ever bought, I think, was 310 to Yuma, the remake with Christian Bale and Russell Crowe by James Mangold. Can't remember what the first VHS I ever owned was. Question 17. What film got you into films in the first place? Star Wars. Simple. Question 18. If films didn't exist, what would you do? So if films didn't exist, then you probably have to think video games wouldn't exist, so that probably rules that out. Television probably wouldn't exist either. So yeah, I'd probably just read a book. Question 19. What is your favourite song or score from a film? So, regardless of what you think of this film, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, has a brilliant score. I would say the best score of any Star Wars movie. Again, think what you want about the film itself as a whole, but the score was brilliant. Just to get away from Star Wars, though, I'm a big fan of the music in the Saw series as well. The particular, like the Hello Zep theme that's used at the end of every Saw song by Charlie Clouser. And my favourite of the themes is Zep 6, used in Saw 6. So yeah. Question 20. Have you ever wanted to live in the world of a film? If so, which one? So yeah, obviously Star Wars. Hobbiton from Lord of the Rings, or The Hobbit. It seems like a really peaceful, idyllic place, of course. Preferably in peaceful times, away from like when all the orcs and the Uruk-hai and whatnot are around. So like after the events of Lord of the Rings, preferably. Also Harry Potter, that would be a brilliant world to live in, with all the magic and so on. I wouldn't want to be a muggle or a squib, but yeah, to be a wizard living in like a magical world would be just brilliant. Question 21. Which film character do you most wish you were like? Han Solo. Yeah, Han Solo, not my favourite Star Wars character, but you know, he's a cool guy. He's got like that swagger to him, like a cocky arrogantness to him. People do like him. But yeah, it would be quite good to be like that, I suppose. Maybe. Question 22. What film have you seen the most in cinemas? So I rarely go to the cinema to see a film more than once. Usually I'll see a film once, wait for it to come out on DVD or whatever. If I really like the film, that is. But the only film I've actually seen more than once in cinemas is The Da Vinci Code. Don't know why, but yeah, I've seen that twice in cinemas. Yeah. I wouldn't watch it again. 23. Who is your favourite film villain and why? So Darth Vader and Palpatine have to get mentioned, but let's get away from Star Wars. Thanos in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, or just the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole. I really like him. I think the performance by Josh Brolin is brilliant. The fact that he kind of sets out to do what he does, he's so focused and determined, and he's almost unbeatable. Yeah, really compelling. They also, in Avengers Infinity War, they kind of make his point of view relatable. Yeah, it's not something I agree with, but he's doing it for like what he thinks are good reasons. So yeah, a really interesting villain. Francisco Scaramanga from The Man with the Golden Gun, James Bond movie, played by Christopher Lee. This is, in my opinion, the first time James Bond actually had to go against someone who was like his equal in almost every way, shape and possible. He had gadgets, he had this special gun, he had the skills, he had like a swagger about him as well. It's almost like the anti-James Bond, so I really like Francisco Scaramanga in that movie. And that movie, by the way, really underrated James Bond film. A lot of people do not like that film for some reason. I think it's actually one of the better James Bond films. But speaking of James Bond, Red Grant or Donald Grant from Russia with Love, I always thought it was cool just to have a Bond villain with my name in their name. So yeah, also one of the best fight scenes ever put to film featured him and Sean Connery. And also you gotta mention Heath Ledger's version of the Joker. The best version of the Joker. 24. What is your favourite horror film? So, simple, John Carpenter's The Thing, the remake of The Thing from Another World or Thing from Another Planet, or I forget what it's actually called. But yeah, The Thing, really good horror film. Just as much of a science fiction film as it is a horror. Practical effects, the fact that this is what, 1982 I think it was, so it's like 30, 40 years almost. And it really holds up in every way, shape and form. It's just a damn good film and that soundtrack's really good as well. But I also want to give a shout out to Saw 6, mentioned it earlier, that's my favourite of the Saw films, and the original Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity 2 and 3 were fine, but then they really went off down the hill with that franchise. 25. Is there a film that's considered to be really bad, but is secretly your guilty pleasure? So yeah, the 2006, I believe it was, version of The Pink Panther. Not a good film. Stars Steve Martin. I really like that film. That, I would say, is my go-to feel-good movie. If I'm feeling really and I'm just having a lazy day, need to lie down and watch something, chances are I'll put that on. It just makes me happy for some reason. I acknowledge that Steve Martin very different from Peter Sellers' Pink Panther, but for some reason I prefer Steve Martin. So yeah, that's a weird one, but yeah. Pink Panther 2006, I like that film quite a bit, even though it's not good and most people don't like it at all. I would also say the Jackass movies. Yeah, those are poor taste films, but yeah, there's something about them that I kind of like. Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa really doesn't hold up modern era. Very questionable stuff in that film, but yeah, there's something I like about it. 26. What, in your opinion, is the worst film ever made? So, Batman and Robin, the George Clooney one, is terrible. Just across the board, bad. Really bad casting choices in there. Uma Thurman was probably the best casting choice in that movie, but yeah, really bad. The Room, often considered the worst film ever made, or one of the worst films ever made. I've only ever actually seen bits of it, and it looks really bad. So yeah, there's that. I would also say A Good Day to Die Hard is terrible. Yeah, it just completely loses the point of what that franchise is, what the main character is. Changes them to a superhero facing terrorists and he goes to Chernobyl. It's just ridiculous. But here's what I think is my answer. Pink Flamingos, 1972. This is a really bad taste film. I would not recommend you see this film at all, even out of sheer curiosity to see how bad it is. This is a film where there's literally a scene in this film where a character picks up some dog poo and eats it. Real like dog poo and so on. This is a terrible, terrible movie. There's an instant where an animal is killed in the movie, and the director's like, "Hey, it's just an animal." It's like, no, this film is awful in every way, shape, and form. Do not see Pink Flamingos. Maybe look up to see what people thought of it or what the gist of the film is, but don't watch it yourself. I do not recommend it at all. The only reason I've seen it is because I had to study it for university. So yeah, it wasn't by choice. There's also like full-on like pornographic sex scenes in the film as well. So yeah, it's weird. 27. What's your favorite film franchise or series of all time? So obviously Star Wars. I have to put Marvel Cinematic Universe in there. The way that that's culminated with Avengers Infinity War and Endgame I think was brilliant, and it really just puts a good cap on things and really elevates that franchise. Also want to give a shout out to James Bond. A lot of the films are just okay. A few of them are bad, but there are quite a few good ones in there, and I like the franchise as a whole. But yeah, those are my answers for that. 28. What's your favourite action film? So, in recent years, you're talking John Wick Chapter 2. I do think that's the best John Wick film. John Wick Chapter 3 is good as well, but I would also say The Raid, the Indonesian film. It's really good action in that film. Not much story. The story they kind of introduced in the second one, which is again a good film. But yeah, the very original Raid is really good. I think you also have to give a shout out to Die Hard. 29. If you could have any film character as your best friend, who would it be? Kind of a cheat answer, but I'm gonna say the Muppets. So Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, Fozzie Bear, Ralph. I love the Muppets. I'm a big fan of the Muppets, and yeah, the Muppets are made to be people's best friends. Of course, you would have to have them as your best friends. Question 30. What's a really well-liked film you've never seen? So there are quite a few. Shawshank Redemption is probably the big one that I keep meaning to watch, and I've just never gotten around to it. The Shining. One of the reasons I've never watched The Shining is because here in the UK we've got some butchered version that's less than 2 hours long. The Shining is a 2.5 hour epic horror film. It's meant to be slow, it's meant to be really methodical. But here in the UK we could only get a version that's like an hour 55 minutes for some reason. I think there are versions you can get now where she has the full version in there, but it's like special edition stuff. So yeah, The Shining's one that I haven't seen. Some big ones as well from the past, like The Sound of Music, I never saw that. Citizen Kane, It's a Wonderful Life. So yeah, quite a few. Of course, I don't have time to watch every film ever made. And I think it's pretty bad if you assume that everyone has seen every film ever made, because it's just not possible. There's not enough time in the day to watch every single film and to keep up with the films coming out and to do everything else with your life. So yeah, a lot of these films, Citizen Kane, Shawshank Redemption, Shining, Sound of Music, chances are I'm never going to see some of them. Question 31. What's your favourite comedy film? Ghostbusters. And I mean the original Ghostbusters, not the all-female one. The all-female one, nothing against the fact that it's all-female, but that's just a bad film. Yeah, totally, tonally and storyline-wise, unlike any of the previous Ghostbuster films. It feels like it's more of a spin-off than anything else. And yeah, shouldn't really be part of that franchise. But the original Ghostbusters, a classic. Really good. Question 32. What's your favourite Christmas film? So my go-to answer there is Home Alone 1 and 2. I think number 1 is slightly better than 2. I think it's got a bit more of a wholesome message in there. But 2 is really funny. In recent years, there's actually a surprising one you might think, is The Christmas Chronicles on Netflix. Kurt Russell as Santa Claus. I actually thought that was really quite good. The first 10-15 minutes, not so much. But once Kurt Russell comes into things, it's actually quite good. It's funny. There's a lot of good action scenes in there. Great performance by Kurt Russell. He's probably my favourite depiction of Santa Claus in film, to be honest. So yeah, I would give that a go. It's a really surprisingly good film. Those are all the questions I've got. I'm sure there are various questions out there you might have that you might want me to answer. So I'll list them down below in the comments. If I get enough of them, I might make another video to add on to this if there are enough questions, or I'll just answer them in the comments. If you've liked this, subscribe to my channel. The more subscribers I get, the more content like this and like all the other things I post on my channel I can make. And of course, like I said, leave comments and questions to feedback down below. Let me know what questions you have like this that I can answer, and I might make another video. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well at @the_Grant Burton. Until next time though, thanks for watching.